So 4.6 part 1. We're going to talk about the fundamental theorem of algebra. So it states that in our equation, the highest degree, so the highest exponent that we have, so in the first one, it would be x to the 1 power. That tells us how many solutions we're going to have. So that just tells us the number of solutions. So if I have x to the first power, I'm going to have 1 solution. If my highest degree is x squared, I have 2 solutions. So notice how it counts plus or minus square root of 2 as 2 solutions. If I have x to the third power, I'm going to have 3 solutions. Now, it doesn't have to be 3 different solutions. Notice here how it has -1, -1, and 1. So your solutions can repeat. It doesn't have to be 3 different ones, but you're going to have 3 solutions total. So depending on what your highest degree is, that tells you how many solutions you have. This page just talks about the same thing we described on the last one. So in example 1, A says how many solutions does the equation have? 3, because my highest exponent is 3, so we would have 3 solutions. The next question says how many zeros does the function have? What do you think? What's my highest degree? 4, so it would have 4 zeros. Saying solutions and zeros are the same thing. They're just both answers of our polynomial. So we could ask for either one. The highest degree tells us how many we'll have. Example 2, we're going to be having to find the zeros. So how many zeros am I going to have? 5. I have x to the 5th power, so I'm going to have 5 different answers. So I can say x equals, and I'll leave 5 spaces. So I'm going to have 5 answers. Now to find our answers, we can try factoring. Can I factor this? No. What do I do if I can't factor? Last over first. So you could try grouping, see if that works. But again, if grouping doesn't work, we do last over first. Yes, because we're going to do synthetic division, so inside our box we have to put that 0 for the x to the 4th power. But let's find our possible factors first. So our last term is 8. What are factors of 8? So plus or minus 4 and 2, 1 and 8. Awesome. And then what are factors of our first? 1. So all of these are over 1, which just makes them the whole numbers. So we're testing out whole numbers here. Now I need to see what works. So these are possible options. I have to do synthetic division to test what's going to go inside the box.
1, 0, 1, -2, -12, -8.
Perfect. 1, 0, 1, -2, -12, and -8. Don't forget about that 0. If you are skipping a term, make sure you put a 0 in that spot. Okay, what number do you want to try first? What do you want to test first? Sure, let's test 2. So we drop down the 1, multiply, add, multiply, add, multiply, add, multiply. We get 4, multiply. What's -8 plus 8? 0. So if my remainder is 0, what does that mean? That it works. So one of my answers is 2. So I'm going to write that up top. X is equal to 2. If I found one answer, how many more do I need to find? 4 more. So if I started with x to the 5th power, my equation here starts with x to the 4th power. Then I would have x cubed plus 5x squared plus 8x plus 4. Can I factor this? Can I group? Do I have 4 terms? No. Nope. So I have to do last over first again. What's my last number now? 4. So what are factors of 4? So 4, 1, and 2. What are factors of my first? 1. So all of these are the whole numbers. So we're only testing out whole numbers here. What's going to go inside the box now?
1, 2, 5, 8, and 4.
Perfect. 1, 2, 5, 8, and 4. We are using these answers that we just found, putting them in the box. What do you want to test first? Sure, we can test 4. So let's try -4 because all of these numbers are positive, so we might need some negatives to help us cancel out and end up with 0. So we drop down the 1, multiply, add, we get 13. Multiply, this would be -52. Do you think that we'll end up with 0? No, the numbers are too big, so it's not going to work out. As soon as you realize it's not going to work, stop and try something else. What else do you want to try? Let's try -1. So multiply, add, we get 1, multiply, add, add, add. What do we get? 0. So our remainder is 0. So does -1 work? Yes, that is another one of our answers. So I'm going to write that on the list up top. -1. So now I have 2 answers. How many more do I need? 3 more. So we can do last over first again, or we could see if this will factor. If I start with x to the 4th power, what am I going to start with here? X to the 3rd power plus 1x squared plus 4x plus 4. I have 4 terms, so how would I check to see if this factors? Grouping. Let's check and see if grouping works. So we can group the first 2 and group the second 2. What's the GCF from the first group? X squared. So we're going to take out an x squared. What am I left with when I take out x squared? X plus 1. Perfect. What's my GCF from the second group? 4. What am I left with when I divide both of these by 4? X plus 1. Be super careful here. The last class just said x because they didn't realize that x squared divided by x squared is 1. 4 divided by 4 is 1. Don't forget that 1 there. What do I have to do next? Put the outsides together and put the insides together. So the insides go together and become x plus 1. The outsides go together and become x squared plus 4. Now I only factored here. I still have to solve. I need to figure out what x is equal to. I set them both equal to 0. Perfect. So x plus 1 is equal to 0. X squared plus 4 is equal to 0. So in the first one, how would I solve for x?
-1.
Subtract 1. So what is x equal? -1. So on my list up here, I'm going to add -1. So notice how I have 2 -1s. That's fine. That can happen. Looking at our second little equation down here, what would I need to do to solve for x? Subtract 4. So x squared is equal to -4. What would I do next? Square root both sides. So what does x equal? Plus or minus? What's the square root of -4? 2 what? 2i, because that negative comes out and turns into an I. So we can have imaginary solutions here. So is this one answer or 2? 2. This is positive 2i and negative 2i. Plus or minus means that there's 2 of them. I have the positive and the negative. So on my list up here, I have 2i and negative 2i. So these are my 5 solutions. So these are the, this is the same thing. It's the same graph, but this is the graph of the example from the last page. It says, notice that only the real zeros appear as x-intercepts. The imaginary numbers don't cross the x-axis. It says also the graph of f touches the x-axis at the repeated zero. So remember how we had 2 of the negative ones? So we had a multiplicity. How many negative ones did we have? So multiplicity of 2 is 2 even or odd? Even. And if it's even, do we touch and turn or go through? Touch and turn. So notice how at -1, we touched and turned at that point. How many x is equal to 2's did we have? 1. So my multiplicity was 1. Is 1 even or odd? Odd. So do I go through or touch and turn? I go through. So at 1, I went through. I mean at 2, sorry, because it was x is equal to 2. So at 2, I went through the x-axis. The only time you touch the x-axis is at the real zeros. The imaginary ones don't count. Don't do anything with them. All right, let's look at number 3. It says, how many solutions does the equation have? 4. Our highest degree is 4, so we have 4 solutions. For number 4, how many zeros does the function have? 3. Our highest degree is 3, so we have 3. So solutions and zeros mean the same thing. Doesn't matter what it's asking for. If it asks for how many, just look at your highest degree. All right, number 3. How many solutions am I going to have here? 3, because my highest degree is 3. So I have x is equal to, and I'm going to have 3 answers here. So I need to find my 3 answers. How can I solve? How can I find any of my answers? Let's try grouping. We have 4 terms, so we can try grouping. What's my GCF from the first group? X squared. What am I left with when I take out an x squared? X plus 7. What's my GCF in the second group? 4. What am I left with when I take out a 4? 4x plus 3. Are my inside parentheses exactly the same? So can I group? No. So we can't group. If we can't factor by grouping, what do we have to do? No, last over first. What are factors of my last? 1 and 12, 3 and 4, and 6 and 2. And all of these are plus or minus. What are factors of my first? 1. So we're just dealing with the whole numbers here. Yes. So these are our possible options. So we need to test one of them. What's going to go inside the box? 1, 7, 16, and 12. Perfect. All of my coefficients. What do you want to test first? Let's test 2. So we drop down the 1, multiply. Well, let's try positive 2 first. We end up with 34. It's going to be too many. So let's try negative 2. That's a good observation, just like we made in the last one, that because all of these are positive, we need a negative number to get things to cancel.
Is that kind of like a trick? They're all
Yeah.
positive, go negative.
It's like a good starting place. So let's try negative 2. Negative 2, 5. We get negative 10, 6, negative 12, and 0. So does negative 2 work? So one of our answers is negative 2. How many answers do I have to find next? 2 left. What can I do next? So this is 1x squared plus 5x plus 6. We can either do last over first again, or we can just factor it. Anytime you're left with just x squared, see if you can factor. So what are my 2 factors of 6 that add to 5? 2 and 3. Negative 1 and 6 wouldn't work because it has to multiply to positive 6. So here I have x plus 2, x plus 3 equals 0. What would I do next?
Minus 3.
Set them both equal to 0. So x plus 2 is equal to 0. And x plus 3 is equal to 0. So what does x equal? -2 and -3. So I'm going to add those to my list too. I have another -2 and -3. So these are my 3 answers. With the last question, number 4, how many solutions am I going to have? 5. So x is equal to, I have 5 answers here. So we have 5 answers. How would we start here? Last over first. So last over first. What are factors of the last? 2, 4, and 1. Perfect. What's going to go inside the box? 1, -3, 5, -1, -6, and 4. Just be careful that you're not missing any terms. We're good here. What do you want to try first? Let's try 2. Right, so the numbers that go inside the box are the coefficients here. And the numbers that are possibly going to go outside are these. So you only want to pick these numbers because nothing else is going to work. So drop down the 1, multiply, add, multiply, add, multiply, add, multiply. We get 10. Add, this would be 4, multiply, 8. Does 2 work? Nope. What else do you want to try? Let's try 1. So multiply, add, multiply, add, multiply, add, multiply, add, multiply. Does 1 work? Yes. So x is equal to 1. What would I need to do next? So since I started with x to the 5th, my answer here is going to start with x to the 4th minus 2x cubed plus 3x squared plus 2x minus 4. Can I factor this? No, so what would I have to do? Last over first again. What are factors of the last? 1, 4, and 2. Same thing that I was trying before. What do you want to try first? Let's try 1. Or let's try -1. We'll try something different. But again, if we tried 1, 1 will work. I think, did I try 2 here? Yeah. If 2 doesn't work here, it's not going to work here also. If it didn't work in your first one, don't try it again because it's not going to work. But -2 could possibly work. So make sure you try the positive and the negative. What's going to go inside the box? 1, -2, 3, 2, and -4. Perfect. The answers from here go inside the box. So let's try -1. Drop down the 1, multiply, add. This would be -3, multiply, +3. Add 6, multiply, -6. Add. This would be -4, multiply, +4. Add. Does -1 work? Yes. So x is equal to -1 also. So because I started with x to the 4th power, this is now going to be 1 less. So x cubed minus 3x squared plus 6x minus 4. From here, you could try grouping, but I'll tell you that grouping's not going to work. So what would we do next? Same thing, last over first.
So don't we know now it's 8? So it doesn't do.
How?
Because it's not 2.
But it could be -2. It could be 1, and it could be -1 again. So inside the box goes 1, -3, 6, and -4. Let's try 1 again. So drop down the 1, multiply, add, multiply, add, multiply. What do we get? 0.
Could it just be 1, -1, 1?
It could be. So we got x is equal to 1, so that's another answer. So then from here, once you get to x squared, factor it. So x squared minus 2x plus 4. I'll tell you that this is not going to factor. What do we do if something doesn't factor? If it's x squared and it doesn't factor. The quadratic formula. So our quadratic formula is negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac over 2a.